Welcome back to another episode of the Vision Pod, where guests are handpicked to bring value to your everyday life. Enjoy. On today's episode, we have Dennis Landis on the show. He's a successful business owner who owns Prairie Coast Equipment. What are you writing your book about?
The title of the book is Finishing Well.
Okay.
And I think it's mostly about watching a lot of very, very successful leaders. You know, they can be business people or they could be just in other celebrity sports. Like definitely leaders in their field who made some pretty serious mistakes. Like it's just bad decisions and ruined their careers. And I mean, there's no such thing as ending the career, but they definitely left a really dark spot on it. And I was finding myself about probably 5 or 8 years ago at the peak of my career. And going, you know, I better pay attention. That could be me making that really horrible mistake, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a teenager, you might make a mistake, but you don't affect very many people. But when you're in leadership, I started realizing that there's hundreds of people that I've never even met, and they would be affected by my poor choice.
Yeah.
So I started becoming really intentional about the choices I made, and one day it dawned on me I wanted to write a book, and I go, I know exactly the subject, and that's what I did it on.
Cool.
So that's what that was.
Yeah, so you've read lots of books. Have you read any books like the book you're writing?
No, that was probably what piqued my interest in doing that book, is because I don't think I've ever read specifically on that subject. So it's not that, so rather than, let's say, speaking about my own experiences, I interviewed 16 different leaders.
Okay.
That and some of them, one's a multi-billionaire, probably one of the richest guys in Canada, and he gave me an interview.
Crazy.
And I interviewed the CEO of John Deere, which has 150,000 employees.
Yeah.
He gave me an interview.
Cool.
And a whole bunch of other really neat people, and some people just ordinary people like my dad.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's all of them. I have, I think, 3 sports celebrities, 1 hockey guy, 2 baseball guys that, you know, played professional.
Yeah.
And their experiences. I think it's a little harder when you're young and making all those millions. You know, you're not ready to make all those.
Yeah.
You know, the money and I'd say the fame that comes with success. As you're that young, you're not ready for it. And even somebody in their 50s sometimes isn't, you know, one's not ready for that. And it's understanding that as leaders, we might get there, and how are we going to handle it?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's about.
That's cool. How'd you get all these people to interview with you?
They were people that I had met.
Okay.
Yeah, like every one of those people I had met in person first.
Yeah.
And there was something about when I would meet them, I'd go, you know, I learned a lesson by just meeting them.
Right.
And that's what inspired me to pick a chapter, and every subject is based around a character that I interviewed.
Cool. So when's that book going to be released?
I hope in 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a 3-year project.
Yeah.
And I thought I could probably do it in a year, and I worked hard and tried to do it in a year, but I'm still working on it. And one nice thing that did happen is, 2 things. About 2 months ago, I added one more chapter, and it would have been a chapter I'd have totally missed out on.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I never had my book finished, otherwise I'd be doing a second release, but no.
Yeah, cool.
It was a total miss of a chapter, and I'm glad I added it. And the other one is, as I've been writing my book, I also understand that even if nobody ever reads the book taught me more lessons about what I needed to learn.
Yeah.
And it was probably just a project just for my own self-build.
That's awesome.
And so almost every week, as you're doing a project, I'm sure you with your podcast, you have the same thing. Like you keep, like an idea all of a sudden comes to your head and you go, oh yeah, I want to do that, right?
Right. Yeah.
And with my book, it was a similar thing. I had things that I would bump into and I go, I think that really fit in that book.
Mm-hmm.
So as I would kind of process that thought, I probably learned one more lesson for myself.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm glad the book took 3 years because
Yeah.
I processed it longer.
That's awesome. Could you see yourself writing another book once this one is released?
This was so out of my comfort zone.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it was like, if somebody, it's like, there's a lot of things that I don't do well, and I would have thought writing a book was never going to be something that I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And but I am a real goal setter, and when I mentor my young guys, my young business people, setting goals and big goals is always what I push them to do. So I also set a goal for myself every year as I'm doing it with them.
Okay, yeah.
And I just said, I'm going to write a book as one of my goals, and kind of regretted making that goal, but
yeah.
no, it's
That's
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do you teach people to set big goals? How do you teach your...
Now that's a subject that there's a lot of material on.
Okay.
Like goal setting is a well discussed subject, and there's a lot of information one can get. I'll give you one lesson, and that is, I used to see myself as a great multitasker. Like I could, in my office, I could be on the phone, somebody across my desk, and still making 2 more other decisions all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Later to find out that actually multitasking isn't possible, and all you did is had an interruption to what you should have been doing, and you handled an interruption in the middle of what you should have been doing, and you did everything poorly.
Yeah.
So but what I learned was I always had usually 10 goals.
Okay.
And as you learn lessons on goal setting, the odds of you achieving any one goal of those 10 when you have 10 goals is almost 0.
Wow.
And the fewer goals you set, the higher the chances are you're going to reach a goal. So if you want to set a let's say sizable goal or something worth setting, set 1, 2 at the most, and your odds of achieving that goal. And so that's probably where writing that book, I only set that one goal, and it's taken 3 years, and I haven't set any other goals in the meantime.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and that's not like me, but I've learned to. There's always priorities that one has to do. Like and by goals, I'm not like. In business, we have budgets. That's not setting a goal. That's setting a budget.
Okay. Yeah.
And in life, there's things that we have to plan to do. Mm-hmm. That's not a goal.
Okay.
And to me, I set goals that on their own they wouldn't be accomplished. You have to be intentional, and you have to work on them.
Okay. And so
intentionally.
Yeah.
Like they don't happen by accident.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so you think that setting that goal like pushes you to stay focused and stay motivated on one thing instead of keep switching from different things?
And life slips by, and it happens, a couple hours slip by, and then a week slips by, and before you know it, 5 years went by, and you paid the bills, and you did some things that were, let's say, of value. But goal setting, I think, is being intentional about making a bigger difference than just getting by.
Yeah.
And I'll start with maybe the first question that you had asked me, and it says, if you were to do things over again, what would you do different? Or what mistakes would you wish you wouldn't have made? And I thought, wow, that was a good question. And I made a lot of mistakes. And, yes, life would have been maybe easier had I not made those mistakes, reliving my life. I go, but at the same time, I'm going to go, had I not made those mistakes, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. Like, I have learned to learn from my mistakes, I think it's developed me to be the person that I am because I did make some mistakes. Hardships come when we make mistakes. Those hardships mold you into a different person than you'd be if life was easy and you made no mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I really felt that making those mistakes early in life also are a little less painful than making them when you have a bigger business or when bigger consequences happen to our mistakes. And I think that I think we all need to sometimes make those mistakes, and I'm not regretting some of the mistakes.
Sure.
There's always regrets about things. Right. It was, a loss of a friendship or something happens when we make poor decisions. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm grateful for it. Yeah. The lessons I learned through.
Cool. Yeah. It's like there's no such thing as a one-sided coin. You're always gonna have two sides to the facts that you get, and it's just what you do with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what would you say to a young entrepreneur trying to start out? I know this might be a little bit out of order, but
no. I think well, for starters, not everybody is built to handle business. Like, business has a ton of risks, and there are some personalities that when it comes to risk, it becomes a very stressful event. And I think that if that level of stress is more than it should be, I don't think one should try to be an entrepreneur if in your personality you can't handle that stress. And I think that my measurement was there were a lot of things that I did not for the money, but I just wanted that hate to use the word, but there is somewhat of a high in stepping out, taking a risk, and achieving what you set out to do, regardless of the monetary outcome. And usually in business, there's always a monetary outcome. There's a loss or there's a profit, and we measure sometimes our success based on that monetary outcome. But at the same time, I would say that as an entrepreneur, if you are motivated positively, it brings satisfaction. There's a reward in doing it, and it wasn't the money. You will handle risk all right. But if every time you have a setback or a decision that involves risk and it just causes more stress than that, I'd say be careful in setting out to be that entrepreneur.
Okay, so was money ever one of your big goals, or was it kind of
not necessarily? I think it was a byproduct. It was definitely a byproduct. Yeah, and I have learned that making more money can create a better business. Profits are needed for hiring the best staff. Profits are needed for a lot of things, and I think there's sometimes a fine line between being known as somebody who was a very successful from a profit standpoint, and I'm going to go. Most of my focus on profit was to build a better business and to just make a difference with that profit.
Yeah.
Yes, I enjoyed the perks that making more money gives you than making less money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that wasn't my motivational thing. And probably the other thing that I ask a person who wants to go into business is how do they handle change? I'll give you an example, and that is my wife. She does not like change. Even buying a new car, it has to be the exact same color, the exact same model, because she needs a new car, but at the same time hates change. And whereas I thrived on change, and you have to be okay with change when you're in business.
For sure.
And back to the risk. There isn't a day in business where you could be out of business and broke, and the bank call in your loans. No matter how successful you are, that day can happen so quickly at any stage. And I watched a dear friend and a relative of mine go broke, and he had 2,000 employees. He had businesses all over U.S. and Canada, had a private plane to get to all those businesses to get to there, and through economic situations that were out of his control, he went broke.
Wow.
And you go, are you okay by being under that threat? Is your wife and family okay? And I've had to watch my wife sign over the house because we ran out of money in our business. And that was the only way that we could make payroll in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Is we signed over the house and borrowed the money against the house to make payroll. And not everybody is cut out for those kind of risks. And that is just all part of being in business. And it really never changes. It never gets easier. We can build some comfort in, you can have a backup plan to a backup plan, but even those backup plans, is economical things. Like COVID was a great example. There were some really, really well-run businesses that through no fault of theirs went out of business through that time. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you got to be definitely open to the risk. Did you find your wife kind of helped you balance out when she's more opposed to it?
Well, she was a good. I think I'd have taken more risks had I not had a solid wife who kept me more grounded than my head in the clouds. And so, there was no question that I think we made a good team. She allowed me to take risks, but I think at the same time she, actually, to be honest, there was probably a era in my career where there were a lot of things I didn't run by my wife. And it was like, she'll say no, so I better not even tell her, and then that way she doesn't know what I'm doing or whatever. But I also admire, over the last probably 10 years, I found that she has become my most solid, let's say, person to bounce something off of. She understands my character. She understands a lot of the other businesses that we do. And I really look forward to her wisdom when we make decisions. And now I've gone the opposite way, and I never make a decision without her being fully aware of it.
Cool.
So.
Yeah. I interviewed Terry Beliski as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was awesome. We were learning about partnerships and how that all went.
Yeah.
And he was telling me about the importance of the prayer that you guys had Monday mornings, I think it was. Yeah. So that was pretty cool, just held together by.
Yeah. No, and we understand, and a lot of the things, and just adding to what Terry was saying, we just actually met 2 days ago.
Okay.
And we were reminiscing on some of the things that happened that, looking back, we go, wow, did we ever dodge a bullet? And, one can say we were lucky, or isn't that good the way it rolled out? And we go, no, we understand that God has a hand in some things that happen that we don't even know was happening. And sometimes we need the perspective of 5 years or 10 years later to say, wow, I'm ever glad that never happened. Because we made some deals that never went through. And those deals could have cost us our business at that time. And it's just neat to see the way prayer and some of those things that God stepped in. At the time, we were disappointed that the deal fell through. And it's, the perspective of time that gives us that opportunity.
Context.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. You just see his hand throughout the whole thing.
Probably another piece of advice that I give to young people is understanding all the dynamics that it takes to be a business leader. And and I'll use myself as an example, I was maybe good at only, I'll say 2 parts of I'll use a 10-part balance to be a good businessman. And I was good in sales.
Okay.
And with that was also marketing. So I knew how to market and I knew how to be a salesman. But boy, there were some big fundamentals that I had no idea and I was really poor at. And I'm going, before you start business, you better have an understanding, and that is, accounting. Like the fundamentals of accounting are so key. The legal work, like understanding what a shareholder agreement is, understanding what a lease or purchase of a building looks like. Those are so, like, they can really ruin your business if you don't understand some of those things. HR is another huge factor. I mean, I've experienced, especially businesses in BC. HR is so different in BC than in Alberta.
Really?
We've had the experience of unions in our company. That's a whole other, we're not prepared to handle all those things. All of a sudden, union wage negotiations and all those things. That's
wow.
Not something that I was prepared for. And I think a lot of people in business don't realize how many aspects one has to have. And I'm not saying you have to be an expert at it, but you have to have some understanding of it, because then you're going to have to delegate a lot of those aspects of that business to somebody otherwise. But what happens is when, especially when we're new in business, we can't afford to hire the best people, and we can't afford to hire everybody to do that. So we think we can do it ourselves. And sometimes we do a really poor job in those areas. And I'm going to go, you have to respect that all of those it takes all of those. And some people, I'll use an example, would be really good on the accounting side or on the legal side, but maybe are missing on the marketing or on the sales side of it.
Right.
And they miss out too, because, it's that salesmanship that sells our products. And that's what it, takes all of those.
Okay.
And one doesn't totally understand that.
Yeah. So what do you think it was about your sales that made you so successful?
I think my personality, I enjoy people.
Okay.
I got to know our customers really well. Like it wouldn't be unusual for me to be invited to one of their kids' weddings, or be at a funeral, or just be part of their life. So there was an aspect to, that's just in my personality, to get to know people. So I think I listen well, and I think that's a big part of salesmanship.
Sure.
A lot of salesmen don't listen, and it's not the product and it's not the price, and those are part of it. But I think it's the human aspect that's the more important one. I think that's the one that I was gifted, or I worked at, whatever. Yeah, I care about people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that does make a more genuine salesman.
Yeah,
for sure. And what about for marketing? What was kind of your strategy there?
No, that one might be a little bit weak. I thought I was an amazing marketer, and I think one thing that I probably took on was too much product, and I thought that I could see. I think I'm really good at seeing an opportunity, and I sometimes push too many opportunities through the style of business that we had. And I think I'd have done better by maybe not marketing as many products.
Okay.
And I think there's a number of products that need to be sold, and learning when to say no to some of those, I think, is more important than taking on everything that should be done.
Yeah.
And I think that changes too. Like you would have no idea. Do you know what a yellow pages ad is?
I'm thinking phone book.
You're very much on that line, yeah.
Okay.
There was a time where maybe we spent $5,000 a month on a Yellow Page ad.
Oh, wow.
And, today, you'd go, what is a Yellow Page ad? And I think trends are changing so much, and I think that one has to be on the leading edge of, you continue doing what works, yes, but you have to be well aware of changing markets and what are the markets for your customer base, and the marketing for that is obviously different than somebody else's, and just because something's working for somebody doesn't always work for you either. And so that's the thing.
Yeah, always adapting.
Yeah.
Was there lots of change in the industry that you were in?
Huge change, yeah, and it's changing even more as we see, but I won't get into the dynamics of the changes in our industry and marketing as much as just understanding that for whatever product line you're in, there are the need to know is there.
And to stay ahead, not get blockbustered.
I know one of the other things that you were talking about is like, what advice would I give to somebody starting out in business?
Yeah.
And back to like understanding your character, and I get it. One of the things is do you consistently finish what you start, or do you have a lot of half-done projects around?
Yeah.
And I got to go, those of us that start projects and don't finish them, we're going to struggle in business. Business is sometimes a grind, and we have to finish what we start. And understanding that I will come back and finish what I started is a really, really important aspect of it. Probably another one that we talked about it, like, are you in it for the money? Or is there anything else that drives you? And probably something that's very fashionable now is, they talk about passion and your passion for the business. And I'm going to go, passion is good, making money is good, but neither of those two will get you, like the grind of doing it every day. Neither of those things will keep you at it. You will run out of passion, and the money won't do it for you anymore. And understanding whether that's an industry that you could enjoy. You like the customers in it. There are some industries that I look at and I go, you know what, that customer base is so different than the ones that I would want to spend a lot of time with. And it's interesting. Like it is like understanding if you can fit in that environment and enjoy coming to work, whether you made money or not, or whether it excited you or not, but I can come in and do it every day. And it probably took that. I bounced around with 15 different businesses while I was in the John Deere business. And it wasn't until the day that I realized, okay, out of all the businesses that I'm looking after right now, it's the John Deere business that I really like the most. And I go, and it was probably our least profitable one at the time.
Wow.
But it was one that I chose. And, understanding that's what I want to do made all the difference. And it wasn't about the money, and it wasn't about I guess it was partly about the passion, but it was mostly about I chose to do it. And that made a big difference. I did it for 35 years. Yeah. What's some of the best advice that I had received? Probably the best one that I got was, and I was in my 50s when I got this advice, so unfortunately I got a little bit too late, and it was getting a mentor. And I picked one, and he lived in Vancouver, or he still lives in Vancouver. I don't live down there anymore.
Yeah.
And I met with him once a month for 10 years. And it made the biggest difference,
Really?
And it was I would say 70% of what we discussed was about business. The other 30% was about life balance and just being accountable to that mentor, that's where I learned to set goals differently. That's where I learned life balance differently. And it really, really made a big difference. And it is for that reason. I mean, you got to see the groups that I've started there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go, you know what, if I can give a young person starting out in business some advice, start earlier, you know, with the mentorship, and be, you know, pick somebody that you look up to and somebody that you will be accountable to. And it's not that they're going to tell you 101 things that you didn't already know, but there is something about that accountability that makes it work. Not what you learned, and just learning from that person is, I think, one of the key pieces of advice that I would like to give.
Yeah, Dennis started up a bunch of mentorship groups, and he mentors businessmen or just people in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what would you say if someone out there is looking to get a mentor? What would you say to look for in a mentor?
I would think, like, there are a lot of people that I've met that are extremely successful, but there are some parts of their character that I don't admire. And I would go, I think, picking a character, like the characters that you're looking for are more important than the success of what they've done. But I also think that we listen, and it's just a human. We tend to listen more carefully to people that are successful than one that have failed.
Yeah.
Yet I would say focus on the character of the person more than on their success. And if you can get both, good for you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice there. Yeah, that's awesome. You like to read quite a bit. What are a couple of your favorite books that you've been reading?
The last one that I gave out probably 30 copies of it. It's called The Art of Significance, and it's just the importance of being a significant person. And I really appreciated the simple lessons that he put in there, and it's an easy book to read, and yet profound. And it can go. You don't have to be in business to be a significant person, but I think it's sometimes in business we tend to focus more on running the business than in being significant as an individual. And I think that a business leader that is better makes a much better company to work for than just a successful business. And I appreciated some of the lessons that I learned there. The other one that I learned that I've really liked lately is called 10x, so 10 times. And the challenge was, in this book, is we often want to increase our, whether it be productivity or what we do. And the focus is, he pushes the reader to strive to be 10 times better than, or do 10 times more.
Yeah.
And he says it's easier. Well, I'll let you read the book to figure out how he says it's easier. But a lot of times is, you know, we focus too much on the smaller stuff, and like leaving the small stuff alone and work on the big stuff is easier than just fixing one little thing at a time. So anyways, it's an interesting concept, and I'm trying to adapt some of it. And one way that I'm doing it is I say no to a lot of things that maybe I would have said yes to in the past, because I gotta go, they're not, I should do it, but at the same time, I go, it's not going to get me to where I'm very intentional on what I'm going to do over the next 5 years, very intentional. And if it's not going to help me get there, I'm going to probably say no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm good at saying no now.
Cool. And who's that? That's 10x is easier than 2x, right? Is that the book?
That's it.
Yeah.
Did your dad get
it? He got it.
Did you read it yet?
I read some of it.
Okay, and it's a hard read.
It is, yeah.
But the last half of the book gets better and makes more sense. But yeah, I struggled to get through the first half. Yeah, maybe starting the second half and then read the first half.
For me, it was difficult because I just want like something to apply it to. It would really, yeah. So when I have a business to apply it to, then I'll really give her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have. What other questions you got here? I should have brought the questions up. Usually right now I'm trying just to do like more conversational style.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that too.
Yeah, because what was it?
One of the things, and if you don't mind, I'm going to read a quote that
Yeah, for sure.
This guy wrote. His name is Dan Clark. He's written 37 books. One of the guys that I interviewed, an amazing individual, and he's the one that wrote the book Art of Significance. And as I think of businessmen specifically, I'm going, we can be extremely successful, and sometimes with success, there are some consequences to our success that can actually bring us down. And one is, a failed marriage is an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're making way too much money, the risk of addictions increases. I mean, you have the option to do way more stuff than you should be doing. And I'm focusing, and I'm trying to help people focus on life balance. And I'm going to go, I had, one of my best friends was, I'm going to guess, I met him when I was in my 30s, and at the time he was extremely disciplined and ran just an incredible business. And I always really looked up to him. And over the last 25 years, I've been just average in my business, but he went through 2 marriages and is on his 3rd. And even though he's still an amazing, smart businessman, it cost him a lot. And it wasn't just money, and it was just, those aren't easy times to go through. And his business suffered through those failed marriages. And, all of us know of somebody who's had either a drug or an alcohol addiction that just ruins their business. And, we too many times we focus on the style of business we run or the success of what we've set out to do, not realizing that it takes more than just a smart business person to make a successful business. And I think it's our lifestyle that probably has as much to do with it as anything. And I'm going to just read you a quote that Dan Clark gave me. And it was, he's a Harvard business professor named Clayton Christensen, and he titled his book, How Will You Measure Your Life? So in it, Christensen, a Harvard Business School graduate himself, shares a comparison and contrast of his 5-year class reunion and then his 25-year class reunion. And as you can imagine, every graduate from Harvard is in a high intellectual class occupied by a select and gifted few. So it's no surprise that his 5-year reunion, every classmate was polished and prosperous. They had great jobs, and some were working in exotic locations, all making big money with huge projections to make more. All had married spouses much better looking than themselves. At Christensen's 25 reunion, a few classmates were executives at renowned consulting and finance firms like McKinsey and Company, Goldman Sachs, and some were making boatloads of money as entrepreneurs. However, despite their professional accomplishments, more than half were divorced, some on their 3rd marriage, and the general consensus was that most of them were clearly unhappy. And in fact, one classmate was the CEO of Enron, who was convicted later as a convicted felon, doing life in prison. So what happened? So all of Christensen's classmates started out happy, and I'm talking, this is classmates from Harvard, right? Like, this isn't, I'm not going to criticize the comp high school, but anyways, that to me is, our Grand Prairie, little pool.
Yeah.
But these guys are Harvard grads, okay? So they all started out happy and they all started on positive trajectory to become successful, but the collective, seemingly insignificant decisions they made along the way ended up costing them a life of significance. So the cool thing about his life-changing book finishing, oh no, that's, now he starts talking about my book, but anyways, well, maybe I should finish reading it. It says, sure. The cool thing about the life-changing book finishing well is that Dennis invites us to conduct a self-audit and answer what is most important to us in our career, and then points out the problem is that we think what matters most in our job often does not align with what really makes us happy. And even worse, we didn't notice that gap until it was too late. So anyways, that's kind of the advice that I try to give is, and I know happiness doesn't pay the bills, but we will pay more bills when we're happy.
Yeah.
If that made any sense. And that's not very profound, but it does make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you have that work-life balance and keep
I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
No, it is the DNA of an entrepreneur. We never shut off, and even when we're sitting on a holiday, and even though we're sitting having a coffee with our spouse, sometimes our mind is on the next project.
Yeah.
And and it's learning how to shut off. It's learning, one is when is enough, or when is it good enough? Like we're always striving for perfection. And we do it because we want to give good service. We want to run good companies. We might have good goals in mind with that, but at the same time, it's there's always a conflict in wanting to do more and do it better, and then trying to have a good relationship with friends and other people, and having life balance. That is something that
it's pretty tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky, and it's always there. But I intentionally know it, which at one time I didn't. A lot of times we all think, well, once I get to here, then I'm going to start taking more time off, or I'm going to spend more time with my family, or we're going to do, and a lot of times when we do get there, our wife and kids may have moved on, and all of a sudden you go, or you might say, look, I did all this for you, and they go, really, I didn't really want more money, or I really didn't want that second house, or whatever it was that we think we want. And that's the tricky part.
Yeah,
is figuring that out sooner than later.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, Dennis. That's really good. Thanks for coming on my show.
Oh, you bet. I'm glad you invited me, and I'm gonna say, you show. I like this interest in this podcast, and I think that you're gonna learn a lot from it too. Yeah. You're gonna learn a lot of lessons. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you guys learned something or found it interesting, please share the video with someone, as it helps me out a lot. Thanks.